good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Spatial Web Metaverse. This is our last virtual event for 2021, and it's brought to you by ourselves, REI and Ydangle apps, the developers of the Spatial Web. And I'm going to go into it in great detail. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Neil Peterson. I'm the founder of Real Estate Investor. So the topic for today, we're getting into the metaverse, and the future of the internet is here. No, really, this is it. So today you'll discover what the metaverse is and how you and your companies can benefit from the metaverse, how you can interact, engage in a 3D computer-generated virtual space using your own avatar, like you all have now with your videos on. So the metaverse moment first started in 1992 with Neil Stephenson's sci-fi movie called Snow Crash, with the idea of the convergence of physical, augmented, and virtual reality in an online space was a good idea for people who wanted to escape the grim circumstances of a real world. Now, how many of us would like to move into another world like this, where we don't know what's going on in the outside world? So you are in that world right now. Now, in 2014, Facebook bought Oculus. They're the manufacturers of the VR headsets for $2 billion. And Mark Zuckerberg already then in 2014 predicted that Facebook would move from a social media company to become a metaverse company where people would share not just moments with friends online, but also entire experiences and adventures. And that's what this is here today. It's really about experiences and adventures that we want to introduce you in this metaverse. So spatial web, where you are right now, is exactly that. And this is just one very sort of basic version of spatial web, but we're going to demo a whole lot of different spaces for you a little bit later. And so spatial web space is developing and it's evolving very fast on a daily basis. And Eric Ninov, as you see on the screen, he's going to be our speaker a little bit now. He'll share what's actually happening there. There's new functionalities that are being added to the space on a regular basis. And this whole metaverse hype really started getting traction recently when Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg announced in 2021 that the company he founded, Facebook, as you know, they're the owners of social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, announced a new name for the company, and they're now called Meta. So, and they will have a new focus, and that is help bringing the metaverse to life as we are doing with you today. So what is the metaverse in its most basic terms? It's essentially a virtual reality space in where users can interact with a computer-generated environment and with other users. It's a highly immersive virtual world where people meet to work, to socialize, to play, to shop, and also educate themselves. And today we hosted in a 3D metaverse called Spatial Web with the developers themselves in the room, and who are already far ahead of the game. And so essentially people working from anywhere in the world can gather virtually on demand as if in person. And I think that's the difference from the other technology that we see. It's almost as if we are here in person and we move around because we're immersed in this environment, and we can't easily sort of multitask. Yes, we can, and we can move around at the same time. But we've already hosted 5 large conferences and 500 meetings, and we've done various custom builds on this platform already, which we'll also demo for you a bit later. And getting back to Zuckerberg, he said that people don't have to meet in physical spaces to be together, to feel present. They can collaborate, brainstorm. They envision a future virtual world where digital avatars connect like this through your work, travel, entertainment, and eventually using VR headsets. So Zuckerberg also believes that the metaverse could even replace the internet as we know it. And in fact, they're backing this initiative with tens of billions of dollars. And I'm sure Eric's going to tell us about that, being so ahead of the game. So really our objective today with you is to introduce you to the metaverse. How does it work? How it can benefit you directly, and how you can propel your business in the future and get directly involved in starting to build your own 3D custom-made metaverse. I think it's a great opportunity for you and your company to lead the pack as tech pioneers. And if you want to differentiate yourself, this is the place to do it by creating your own virtual world where your partners, your staff, your prospective clients, or even their avatars can interact in real time. So we know also a lot of you are also in the real estate business, and the metaverse will also evolve dramatically in that space. And Eric will share that a little bit later in terms of NFTs and crypto, and there's a whole lot of new terms, sometimes very new and cutting edge, and we will also be discussing that as well. So, without further ado, we've got Eric, and Eric is right next to me over here. Eric Ydangle, he's our presenter for today. He's the co-founder of Ydangle Apps and a tech development company there who develops spatial web. And they are absolute leaders in this fast-growing metaverse space, and I'm really proud to have him over here and to chat with you today. So without further ado, Eric, it's over to you.
Hi, Neil. Thanks a lot. So there are a lot of changes that are happening in technology and it's continuously changing. But we've seen the advent of blockchain. Hardware is still developing at a rapid rate, both on desktops and mobile phones, and you're getting a lot of different devices, wearable type devices that are being developed. Networks are developing at a rapid rate. You've got artificial intelligence coming. We've got IPFS, which is a different way of decentralizing storage of data and content. We've got the social media, which I think will be drastically changed with the advent of the metaverse. We've got you've got all kinds of cloud services. You've got the emergence of NFTs, which are linked to the blockchain, and all these trading places like marketplaces like OpenSea, where you're getting billions of dollars traded quarterly in NFTs. So, and this is just the beginning. It literally is, very, very early days. So all these technological changes are coming together. And the one thing that I do need to mention is the web technologies themselves are changing. And the fact that you're here today, this is an entirely a web-based application. So you just go in and bang, you're in the thing. You're not downloading an app first and doing all kinds of things. It's literally the web, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. We saw a lot of it, that you could see the build-up to these things. You had Pokemon Go. You've got Microsoft pushing ahead with the HoloLens devices on the wearable side. You've got Google with Google Glass. You've got companies that are mapping, and even on Apple's new iPhones, you can map the 3D environment around you and create sort of spaces, of. You've got companies like Eighth Wall who are, very heavily into the AR stuff and making a lot of the augmented reality stuff possible on web. You've got Oculus, and Neil mentioned Oculus, which was acquired by Facebook, which is, all virtual reality and, immersing yourself in there, with virtual reality. If you've played with that, you put the headset on and you literally get immersed. Spatial Web does work in the VR headset. So it's early days, and not all the functionality is there, but you could effectively walk around in these spaces with an Oculus headset on. You had Vive with their VR stuff. And then we had another change. We had COVID appear, and whilst virtual working was always sort of an appealing thing, you had the emergence of Zoom and Teams and a bunch of these other sort of, team collaboration type of products that emerged. And I just got two screenshots here, but you're all familiar with this by now. This has taken off in a big way, and in an interesting way has enabled the sort of, not enabled, but sort of made things like the metaverse more acceptable. The whole idea of being virtual is being accelerated at a rapid rate, and the whole idea of engaging with people virtually has been accelerated. Yes, we've had telephones and we've had all of those things, But this is becoming, really, really visual. And I'll talk a bit about Zooms and Teams later and why, the metaverse type environment is very different from these, where you have a static screen with a whole lot of people staring at you, and you're sort of locked in and you can't move. And you all heard the sort of term Zoom fatigue, which sets in, and it is actually real. It is very real. So you have the emergence of these things, which is bringing the metaverse thing closer together. What we're seeing, though, is a sort of emergence of the web. If you go back to the early days of the web, where you literally had a page, in those days you needed to have, for those of you as old as I am, you needed an IP address, which you needed to type in to find that particular web page. And then eventually that sort of started changing, and we had some of the search engines, Mozilla and Netscape and all of these things, where you could start searching the web and looking for web pages and doing that sort of stuff. And then you had the sort of more dynamic web that emerged, which is more data-driven and where commerce was being enabled, and you had these back-end servers and things. And then you've got this change in the web. So if you imagine this website here now, and I'll talk specifically about spatial web because we've been building this product to be the new web. Now, these spaces that you see here can all interconnect and link to each other. You can, and they can be accessed through going through a portal. They can be accessed through clicking on a link like you would do on any other web page, where you see a link and you click and you go to another space. And so these things are all potentially all networked, and you essentially end up with a 3D web. Now, you will still have static web pages, or 2D web pages are not going to go away. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But the big difference with this new web is three things: people, places, and things, objects. So that's just a little bit. If you look at the metaverse landscape, and Neil touched on this, there are a bunch of companies getting in. I think the biggest sort of announcement and the biggest sort of, stake in the ground was Facebook, who changed their name to Meta, and actually, they're putting $10 billion in the short term into developing the spatial web. Now, and then there are a bunch of other companies. Unreal Engine, which is really a gaming engine, it started out as a gaming engine. Altspace VR, which is Microsoft's foray into the spatial web. You've got Unity, which is also a big game development platform, which is entering. You've got Decentraland, which is a very sort of crypto-specific type of metaverse, and is very heavily focused on trading NFTs. But what they've also done, and you'll see a lot of big companies have actually purchased space. So in Decentraland, you go and you buy a piece of land, and that piece of land you can then go and develop. Those pieces of land are selling for big numbers of money, some of them. And I saw recently in one of the metaverses a piece of land sold for $2.5 million, and that's virtual. That's not. We're not talking a real piece of property and land with a building on it. You've got Somnium Space. So you've got a bunch of these companies, and then we've got Vatum, which is the owner of Spatial Web, and are pushing ahead heavily with the development of Spatial Web. So there's a whole new landscape. Now, exactly how this thing pans out is not clear. If you think about the early days of the web, people did not really see the value of it. And that emerged. And as these things developed, the value of the web, I don't think anybody can imagine not having the web in today's world. And I suspect the metaverse will become something very similar. I think the point here is that, this is not just a sort of a good idea, and, it might last, it might not. This is something that's going to get traction and is going to become the new way in which, we interact virtually, I think, and do things virtually. Then we've had the emergence of blockchain, and I'm not getting into blockchain. You're all familiar with blockchain and the various, the big ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of those sorts of things. But there are a host of other blockchains. But non-fungible tokens essentially are tokens which are and this is the interesting part of it, is that they can literally be resources, an image, or something that is which is written to the blockchain, but it's only the ownership of that image that is written to the blockchain, not the actual object itself. That is stored somewhere on the in a server or a database somewhere, and but people buy those things, and the reason they buy them is to actually prove ownership of that particular image. The other type of NFT that you're finding is where the NFTs are linked to physical goods. So, and recently there was a sale. One of the big companies, I can't remember the name now, put up for sale. They turned some of their whiskey, their very old whiskey, into NFTs. So they associated the NFT with the whiskey, which is in their cellar, and they sold those whiskies as NFTs online. And that someone is now holding that NFT and have ownership to that bottle of whiskey that is sitting in that cellar. And those whiskies, I think, were selling for something like £15,000 or something to that effect. But they've now got this, so they can now prove ownership, and they can now sell that. And whoever has that NFT has that particular entry in the blockchain in their wallet, owns that bottle of whiskey. So that bottle of whiskey hasn't physically moved between people. The ownership of that bottle of whiskey has changed. And I personally think that is where a lot of the future NFT value is going to come from, as opposed to the sort of fads of trading images and pieces of art, and every man and his dog creating an image and putting it up for sale as well. But just to give you an idea, the early ones were CryptoKitties, and there you had CryptoKitty selling for $170,000. But I think the big one was Beeple. Now, Beeple is quite a popular artist, and you've probably heard of this. But Beeple sold a collage of his artwork for $69 million. And essentially, it's a entry on a blockchain that's been paid for. Now, was that right or wrong? Geez, I wouldn't want to wager no one. But it gives you an idea of the scale and the view that people are having of these digital objects. I'll get back to sort of what is the thing, is people, places, and spaces. Now, the big change with the web, currently when you're watching a web, or up until now, being in a website, looking at something has always been a personal experience. You've gone, you've searched for something, you've gone to it, you've looked at the product, you've maybe bought the product. What's different with the spatial web is you can now do that with someone else. The web becomes a social place. So let's say, for example, I want to buy a new bicycle, and I go into the bicycle shop's virtual website, where I can now look at a 3D model of the bicycle. There'll be some videos, there'll be some other things which I can look at. But what happens now is I say to my mate, hey, why don't you come and join me here quickly? I'm thinking of buying this new bike. I just want to get your idea on it, and maybe a couple of your mates. And you're then having a chat about the bikes, and a bit like you may do in a real shopping experience, and you can have a real salesperson standing there talking to you about the bicycle and explaining, what's happening there to you, from a real point of view. So suddenly, the interaction on the web becomes a personal one, not just something that you're searching through on a one thing. So you've got people. Then you've got the places and spaces, the ability to move around, explore, do things. And one of the key things is creating experiences in these. And I'll show a video right at the end where you'll be able to just see some of the events that we've run in Spatial Web, which just show how, you can entertain people in Spatial Web. You can network in Spatial Web, which you can't do in any other platform. Trying to network in Zoom in a two-dimensional plane is really difficult. Walking off here and bumping into someone and having a chat with them is very, very different from, just everybody up on a screen. And then you've got things, and things are the objects that you get, and you could, for example, buy an NFT in here, which could just simply be an image or a piece of art or whatever the case might be. It could be an NFT that's linked to a physical good. And in its current, I use the examples of a bottle of whiskey, but I mean that essentially could also be a house or anything you physically can think of that you could link and transfer ownership to using the sort of mechanism of blockchain and an NFT. So it's early days, and I'm not saying you can do that right away, but you can trade NFTs and you can buy them and sell them, and you can literally attach physical objects to those things today. With property, it's a bit different. I think there's quite a bit more complexity, but if you put your mind to it, I don't think it's really impossible. So that is what makes up the metaverse. Now, the other thing is people tend to think of the metaverse as just a space where you can move around in 3D. And yes, that is very much part of it, but it's all the other things that go with it. It's the wallet that you carry around with you on your phone, which has got all stuff that you bought, that you might have collected, that you throughout your journeys. Your ability to sell things from that wallet on your phone. Your ability to look through your camera's phone in augmented reality and see the object that you dropped in that world and other people have dropped, and collect them and bring them into the 3D space. And the same thing with virtual reality, putting on that virtual reality headset and going in somewhere. All of this makes up the metaverse in its broader context. And then obviously all the technology that surrounds it. So that's the bit. Then what I want to do is just talk a little bit about spatial web, because that is the product we've built over the last 18 months. We've built the product for our client, and we're also a small shareholder in Vatum, in the company Vatum, and we've taken a very different approach to what you will see in Altspace and in a number of these other platforms. The big difference is what we're trying to do is trying to create a human engagement platform, something that is personal. A lot of the other experiences, you have these really weird, odd avatars that you can dress up and you can make yourself look like anybody, but that is, in a way, that's escapism. It's representing a view of yourself in a different way. Whereas what we're trying to do here is, and we will have the ability to do that in spatial web, but what we're trying to do is create an environment where there are real human interaction and engagements. And I think that is one of the big things that sets spatial web apart from anything else out there. The other big thing about spatial web is the scalability of it compared to the other platforms. And if you look at the other platforms where you've got sort of engagement with people, I think you'll find some of them that might go up to about 50 people. We've had up to, I think, just over 750 people in a single space. We know that we can go to 4,000, and we believe that with the architecture that we've got, that we potentially can have an infinite number of people in spatial web. So you could literally, have the whole world in spatial web, provided there's enough space for everybody to fit in the space that you've put together. So that is a very big difference between ourselves and others. And then the ability to link different spaces together in a way that in the same way that you would create a website makes a big difference. And just to sort of trying to make that real in a sort of property sense. If you had, for example, a space which was a replica of a property development that was happening, and that would be one property development. From that property development, you could potentially link to another property development. People could go in there, walk around the property development, have a look at what the thing looks like, go back to another one, click on another link, or go through a portal and go somewhere else, and at the same time meet people there, discuss what they're seeing with people. And creating an environment which is, very different from, and it's scalable. So people come in from all over in the same way that you could do with a normal sort of website. Then just a quick thing, what can you do with spatial web? Well, events, gathering, concerts. You've got galleries, NFT art galleries, and we've got a couple of those. you marketing and advertising. You could have adverts running in different places and just create there. You've got shopping in the same way. You can do e-commerce anywhere else, financial services, media and media events. You could live stream rugby events or whatever other events you want to into a space like this, and watch the thing with your friends. Now, and currently most of you are probably on relatively small screens, but it's quite incredible when you push this web screen up onto a very big screen environment. It actually changes it quite significantly. And you can read the slide there, and there's a lot of stuff going on: real estate, auctions, coaching, dating and networking, all kinds of things that you can potentially do in spatial web. One of the key things about spatial web is that it's been built with a plug-in architecture. So, we don't believe we'll ever be able to build all the functionality that everybody's going to need from the spatial web. And in the same way that you can go and develop a WordPress site and build functionality to that, spatial web allows one to develop custom applications that can be run within spatial web and can enhance or add new functionality to the platform. I mean, you can even create games. We had our team away on a away day on a hackathon, and very quickly they built a game where you could run around and shoot things and shoot people and do that sort of stuff. So not really the thing you're interested in, but the point here is that you can extend the functionality of the platform and pretty much create whatever it is that you want to do. And really, I spoke about networking these things is putting everything together and creating this multiverse of things. Some of the spaces here, the one in the pink one at the bottom of the screen, was created by the Architecture League in New York, and they had their annual event in there, and it was quite an incredible thing. They had audio that was set up in a particular way. They had all the shapes and things had been done from an architectural perspective, and so they applied a lot of creativity there. So that really, I think, and then one other thing is, the extent analytics. So you can find out what is going on in your site like you would with anything else. How many people have they been there? What have they been doing? What they clicked on, all of those sorts of stuff.
Media and MediaLink's legendary CES event took place in a new human engagement platform called Spatial Web.
Virtual festival of unprecedented scale, MediaLink and Cannes Lions have brought top brands, agencies, and executives together from all over the world in a single spatial website. Many companies took the stage and presented their work and vision of the future and the present, including Amazon, Procter & Gamble, Dentsu, and Nielsen, to name a few. The Vadim Spatial Web is clearly changing the way brands and creators can activate, engage, and monetize audiences on a global scale.
of our very unique Infinity Global Summit, all about redefining our brand. We decided to be true to our brand values of human daring and forward, and to try some really cool technology out.
Welcome everybody to the launch of Destination Reserve. This is the Metaverse, and we'd love for you to embrace it with us.
Cool. That was it. Great. Thanks very much, Eric.